For a closer look at the geopolitical tensions at this volatile moment in history, I'm joined now by former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd. He's currently the president and CEO of the Asia Society, and he is out with a new book called The Avoidable War, the dangers of a catastrophic conflict between the U.S. and Xi Jinping's China. Prime Minister Rudd, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you so much for my very own copy of this book. A pleasure to see you. So your book lays out the dangers of a future military conflict between the U.S. and China. Kind of break that down for us and why you think that could actually happen at some point.
Well, Stephanie, when we look at the war unfolding in Ukraine, we had thought that we'd seen the last of war at this scale back in 1945. I think it's a sober reminder for all of us that war is never completely beyond the realm of possibility, even involving great powers. But two big things have happened between China and the United States. One is that China's become so much more powerful in the last 20 years, so that the balance of power militarily, economically, technologically is much closer than it used to be. And as a result, China therefore believes it has more capacity to assert itself against American interests and values in the world. Secondly, Xi Jinping, the leader. I talk about him a lot in this book and what his worldview is. He himself is on a trajectory to make China into the world's dominant power by mid-century, and the dominant regional power probably in the next 15 years or so in the Asia-Pacific. So that tends to put the US and China, I won't say on a collision course, but something getting close to it. So the book is about how can we navigate through this strategic competition without blowing each other's brains out.
And you make the case in your book that the U.S. and China should come to the table and agree on red lines. Do you think that would work?
I don't think there is a silver bullet here which somehow removes entirely all risk of crisis, conflict and war. What I'm about is reducing the risk to something more manageable. You see, right now we're in a period of acute strategic competition, militarily, economically, technologically, between, frankly, both countries and their partners and allies around the world. But at present, this strategic competition has virtually no rules of the road, no guardrails. What this book is about is an entirely realist book. It's not an idealist book which says, if only we could talk more and sit in the corner and have a kumbaya moment, it will all be over by tomorrow, Saturday morning, or something like that. It's not about that. It's just saying, what are some rules of the road here so we don't have accidental crisis, conflict and war? About strategic red lines, which I think are capable of being negotiated, if not agreed. Then non-lethal competition for the rest of the US-China relationship in the economy and other domains. And then finally, still some space for strategic collaboration, like on climate change, which is in the interests of people in both countries.
So a managed strategic competition could possibly reduce that risk. So let's say if such guardrails aren't put in place, just how likely do you think there could be a miscalculation or escalation to conflict between the two nations, let's say in the next decade?
Very high, and gets higher as you get into the 2030s. The number one scenario relates to Taiwan, because China is determined to regain national sovereignty over Taiwan. And that, of course, for the United States and China, therefore, constitutes a strategic red line. In the South China Sea, we've got all these Chinese claims for maritime domain. You have so much metal rolling around at the moment. Ships, planes, vessels of all descriptions. The statistical probability of a crash, a collision occurring, gets greater and greater as each year goes by. And what you know is that when you have an incident, the capacity to escalate and have a crisis and have a conflict and even a war increases as well, if not eliminated.
And of course, the world's attention right now is on Ukraine and Russia, and we know that China is watching this conflict very closely, but China has walked that fine line of standing by Russia without directly aiding them in the war. What do you think is driving Jinping's calculations during this conflict?
Well, the Chinese are run by a Marxist-Leninist political party, and it's called the Chinese Communist Party. They're very brutally realist about China's national security interests. Number one, what they want is a benign border with the Russian Federation. It's one of their longest land borders, and for most of the history of the China-Russia relationship, it's been adversarial. Right now, under Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, it's not. In fact, it's getting a lot better. So that is strategic interest number one for Beijing. Keep a good relationship with Moscow under any circumstances. Because number two, that allows you as China to dedicate all your strategic enemies and energies to your strategic competition with the United States, regionally and globally. And on top of that, Russia strategically distracts America and other theaters, whether it's the Middle East, North Africa, and as we see in Ukraine. And Russia also has a supply of enormous oil, gas, wheat, agricultural commodities to China as well. Put that together, when Xi Jinping looks at Ukraine, he says, that's pretty ugly, but in their overall scale of Chinese national interests, I do not see any scenario where they're going to really back away from Vladimir Putin.
That is all very interesting. Thank you so much. Hopefully there is no escalation between the U.S. and China, and of course the conflict in Ukraine. Hopefully that comes to an end very, very soon. But Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time, and thank you again for my very own copy. I appreciate it.
Good to be with you, Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.